Before we start this show, just a word from our sponsor, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest that pro wrestling has had to offer. Along with their awesome line of pro wrestling apparel, they do offer many services. In the world of wrestling, there are hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads. Don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. If you would like to discuss possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or whatever, drop them a line. Go to 20 by 20 Apparel. That's the number 20x, the number 20 apparel.com. Now, let's get to the show.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bummy, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what are those. You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grind and shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all. Cause it's nothing to me, it's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop at the mall. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. I tell I'm running out of breath, I tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh. Fresh, goddammit, we fresh.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And on Fresh is the Word, we like to deliver wisdom through great stories from the minds of bright creatives of pop culture. Through those stories, we like to dissect the journey of our guests and present actionable lessons and advice for our listeners, no matter what career or avenue of artistry they pursue. And before we get into this episode, I want to give a shout out to Knox Money, Bang Belushi, and Foulmouth for the theme music for Fresh is the Word. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can always go to freshisthepodcast.com and just share any of the links for any of the episodes on any of your social media platforms. And also, you can subscribe to Fresh is the Word pretty much anywhere that podcasts are streamed. And that includes Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, pretty much everywhere. And please rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts. It will definitely help out the show. If you want to contact me, you can always reach me by email at djkfresh@gmail.com. Or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at KFresh is the Word, and on Facebook at facebook.com/KFresh. And you can also follow Fresh is the Word on Twitter at Fresh is the Word, and that's is with an IZ, Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, and Facebook at facebook.com/Fresh is the Podcast. And this is episode 146. The guest for this episode is James, the Human Furnace Bullock, vocalist of the Cleveland-based metal hardcore band Ringworm, who have a new album out this week, Death Becomes My Voice, on Relapse Records. This weekend, the band will have a trio of album release shows in Ohio and Michigan. On May 3rd, they'll be in Mansfield, Ohio at Belcher's House of Rock. On May 4th, they'll be here in Detroit, Michigan at the Sanctuary. And on May 5th, they'll be in Cleveland, Ohio at the Phantasy Nightclub. Those dates will also be in the show notes for this episode at freshisthepodcast.com. During our conversation, we talked about the new album, the history of the band, how he balances the multiple bands he's in, the songwriting process, being a tattoo artist, and other art forms he does, and why heavy music is so important, among many other things. All right, let's get on to the interview with the Human Furnace from the band Ringworm. To start things off, you guys have a new album coming out, Death Becomes My Voice. I was just listening to it. Man, it rips, man. I love it.
Thank you.
Cool. You guys are, 30, Ringworm is 30 years in now, and you have this new album coming out. What was sort of, going through your mind when you were, starting to write and record this album?
Well, I mean, after we finished the last one and did all the touring for that one, we already kind of knew we were going to do another one. I mean, when you get to this stage, I mean, it's almost 30 years, pretty fucking close, I guess. You gotta, you gotta sit back and think like, well, do we want to keep doing this, And it was a really simple answer. I mean, we were just like, yeah, of course we want to keep doing it, So let's do another record, So, as soon as we were done with that, Matt already had material for this new record. In mind, like at least a framework of something for the new record before we even done touring with the last record. So, when we finished all the touring for that in like 2000, I guess 18, he already had started writing. So, it was a pretty quick process. I mean, it took a little bit to get out because you have to go through all the protocol, putting on a new record. So the record was, in fact, done like months and months and months and months before it gets released, which is like with any record, So, I mean, we had a pretty good head start on it before we were even done with touring for the last record.
At this stage in your career, whether it's with Ringworm or anything else that you're involved in, are you just constantly, working on new stuff, or, what's your regular protocol?
Well, I mean, besides Ringworm, I do another band too called Gluttons, and that band is quite busy as well. So, I mean, between Ringworm and that other band and all the shit ton of other stuff that I do, I'm just constantly busy around the clock, like forever. So there's not too much downtime as far as anything like creativity or any like productivity as far as like artistically goes. So there's never really seems to be any downtime between any projects, whether it be, once we're done with the Ringworm thing, we're working on Glutton stuff, and then we're working on Ringworm stuff at the same time, and then there's all the other shit that I do. So it's constant. Never bored.
Right. How do you sort of balance all that? How do you make sure that you don't get burnt out, all these years in music?
That's a pretty good question. I mean, sometimes you do. I mean, I guess it all boils down to just doing what you love to do. Like the old standby is, if you do a job that you don't, do a job that you love and you never work a day in your life, I guess that kind of rings true. I mean, we still love doing what we're doing, so it's like you can get burned out on the touring and all the technical shit that goes with, putting out a record and promoting it and all that stuff. That stuff gets old sometimes because you've been there, done that. But you know what you have to get done to get a record out, and the writing process can also that can be kind of grating and grueling at times, but it's the end result that like you're like, yeah, that was all worth it. So you do get burned out, but you can take it all in stride and kind of at this stage you kind of know what you're in store for when you go to put out a record.
Yeah, even having the knowledge of what you need to do, how do you get through that grueling process of songwriting? For me, like I'm the last person to hear or get the material, because Matt will write stuff and he runs it past our drummer. Our writing process is really simple. Matt will work on songs on his own time, and then when he has stuff together, he'll run it past our drummer. They work on it. Sometimes I'll hear what they're working on before, in the early stages, and occasionally I have maybe a request or some type of change, like maybe make this part slower, maybe do it a few more times. Stuff like minor stuff like that, or even before the writing process is over, I'll be like, hey, let you write a couple more slow songs, or write something that's super fucking fast, or, right.
I'll have some suggestions like that, but I don't usually hear the material until in its final form, until it's actually recorded. So they go record, and by then I may have heard a few things, and I start to get vocal patterns and ideas for stuff, and start plugging in ideas that I've had lyrically into certain songs. But when it's recorded, I'm the last person to get it. So usually everybody's waiting for me, which is not out of the ordinary. But the last person who gets it usually is the guy holding the bag and holding everything up. But yeah, I mean, for me, I guess the vocal process it's pretty grueling. It's mentally taxing, physically taxing. It's not a particularly fun thing for me to do,
Right.
because it's just rough. I mean, the way I approach every record and every song is kind of like you kind of pour yourself into it. It's not just phoned in lyrically, and you kind of gotta work at that. You gotta dredge up, bad memories, good memories, and kind of, do your best to work them into the song and to come up with a product that's honest and original and raw and heartfelt. So the vocal process could be, always is pretty grueling. So when it's done, it's quite the relief for me and for everybody else, because finally I'm done with my vocals and then we can move on.
Right. Yeah, kind of extending on the vocal process. Once everything is sort of written and recorded, and it's time for you to sort of take over and do the vocals. What's sort of going through your head? What do you hope to really accomplish during that time?
Well, it's pretty strange, and this I would imagine could only happen to a band or a vocalist or however you want to look at it, that has been doing this for quite a long time. You have a long period of time to look over and find consistencies in how things work. And for me, I don't know what it is, but when it's time to do a new record, shit always fucks up in my life. So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a snake eating its tail. Maybe my life gets fucked up because I'm still in a band, and that's what it's almost sometimes I'm like, everyone's like, well, why are you so mad? I'm like, because I'm in a band. That's why I'm mad. Or why are you in a band? I'm like, well, because I'm mad. That's why. So so it's like a snake eating its tail sometimes, because doing this for so long, and even doing it not a long time, it like this type of stuff like takes its toll. Like, you make a lot of sacrifices, you do a lot of shit that changes your life and fucks up your life sometimes, and holds you back from, you have real life problems. And the older you get, the more responsibilities you have outside of your band, and it's particularly true with bands that, like ours, that don't really, we don't make a living off the band. We do okay, but, obviously there's bands that tour, 250, 260 days a year. And we don't do that. We all have life and jobs outside of this. And, so that kind of, to continue to do this, at our level, it's still a tremendous amount of sacrifice to do it, because it's just how the music business is. So, and I guess in a way too, that kind of keeps us grounded. We don't do anything that we don't want to do. We don't change our style to maybe fit in or to sell more records because we've got to make X amount of money, or, so in a way that's a good thing, So I kind of forgot where we were going with this one of the question, but
no, it's good.
Yeah, so there's that. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Oh no, it's basically it.
It trailed off.
No, it's all good. But you kind of mentioned it, during that answer, like why do you still do a band, let alone two bands, after all these years?
That's pretty. I mean, I'm a lifer, and most people pretty much everyone that I'm in bands with is lifers too. And it's just a really simple answer. I mean, we enjoy doing it. You know what I mean? It's not like it was never our job. It was never. It always started as just, for me personally, it always started as just a release, a way to fucking scream my balls off about stuff that pissed me off or the way I was feeling about stuff, and that's never really changed. So that's one reason why I continue to do it, and and everybody else, we just have fun doing it, and I think we're still really fucking good at it. So,
Yeah.
That helps, what I mean? That helps, like, mentally, like, wanting to still do it, There's still people that appreciate what we do and all that stuff. So, it's just for the love of doing it. Everyone's just kind of lifers. It's anyone that's been in a band for many years, you kind of know what I'm talking about. You just it's just something that you do, and you can't ever see not doing it. I mean, hell, look at even on an amplified stage, if you look at guys like even Ozzy and even like Motorhead and stuff like that, guys that have been doing it for 40 years and all this stuff, and people are like, why don't you quit doing it? You're so old. It's like, why? Why stop? There's no reason to. It's what you do, and you just continue to do it because,
Right.
you have fun doing it. It just kind of gets ingrained in the person that you are,
Right. Before Lemmy passed, people would ask him why doesn't he just retire, and he was like, why?
Yeah, there's no point. I mean, what's he gonna do? I mean, for a guy like that, what's he gonna do? Settle down and go golfing every day? You know what I mean? It's like there's no point. It's what he does, and he did it till the day he died, and that's pretty awesome. I mean, some people could look at that as sad. I'm sure he did not. He just did what he wanted to do, and for his whole life, for most of his whole life, So, it's like I said, it's just something that you feel like that you need to do. And even if like Ringworm stopped doing stuff, I'm sure I would start doing something else. I've already, like I said, I'm in another band that does stuff when Ringworm's not doing stuff. So it's like, I don't know, maybe too dumb to quit, I guess, or just, you don't know, you know what I mean? You don't, I don't know. I can't see stopping. And I can't see anyone in my band just like being like, oh, I'm not going to play music anymore. That would be an insane thought.
Is there anything outside of music that you do? Because I did read that you are a tattoo artist and you do other artwork.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's my bread and butter, really. I've been a tattooer for just as long as I've been in Ringworm, close to 30 years. So I own a couple tattoo shops here in Cleveland, Ohio, 252 Tattoo. So that's where I put a lot of my focus because that's how I earn my living. And that actually kind of gives me the support system to continue doing the band because the band itself is not, we could put it this way, we could make a living off doing the band, but it wouldn't be a very good living. We would be sleeping on couches and probably none of us would have vehicles, so it's like, it's one of those things. So the tattooing, in a way, it's given me a career and a living, and it's also allowed me to continue doing the band financially. So, but I do that. I do album covers. I do graphic designs. I own 2 T-shirt companies. I'm a landlord. I do all types of stuff. So, I'm spread pretty thin. I wear a lot of hats, but like I said, I'm never bored. I'm always doing something.
Yeah, I was listening to this one other podcast, and it was a podcast basically about like, business professionals and like, getting, making better use of your skills. And this one episode was about, having that job or whatever that sort of, and thinking about it as lending itself to your art. So, your
Right.
tattoo shop and whatever else lends itself to the creative process of the bands you do. And it brings like much more freedom to your art. How do you feel like you're able, is there any sort of, sigh of relief or freedom you have with your music because you have these other things that can give you a little bit of a financial security?
Well, a little bit. I mean, on the art front, outside the band, I mean, as far as like the career choice I took, there was never much choice for me. I mean, I've always drawn. I've always been, I guess, an artist. So there was never any doubt what it was that I was going to do for a living. I mean, of course I've done odd jobs here and there, but it was always art that was going to be the thing. So I had to figure out a way to use that and as a way to make a living. It's a tough go at it. That's why there's the term starving artist. You don't usually hear starving plumber or starving electrician, So,
Right.
you know what I mean? So, I mean, it's a tough go at it. And tattooing and at the time when I started, tattooing wasn't nearly as accepted or, I guess, popular as it is now, as it is these days. So it was still quite a risk to go into that field. I mean, I started getting tattoos. I started drawing other people's tattoos, and then eventually, an artist that I used to go to was like, "Why don't you just start tattooing? You're doing everything else." So that kind of led me into it, and a few of my peers had started doing it. So, that part, once I got into that, I knew that was the way to go. And that's always up and down. That's never been like, easy street by any means. So, but fortunately for me, when Ringworm first got together, we broke up for like maybe 2 or 3 years. And at the beginning stages of the band, when you're so young, and we did really well when we first came out, things kind of fell into place pretty easily. And then we were doing pretty well. So, when Frank, our original guitar player, left and the band ended right there, that was kind of a wake-up call for me to like, what, music is not, you have a very small chance statistically of, making it, quote unquote, in the music business, so any dreams of rock starism were kind of squashed that minute. So I kind of realized, I need to do something with my art because this is what's going to make me have a career at this, it's not going to be a band. So, fortunately we did break up for that small period of time, and that allowed me to kind of get my life together on the other front, outside of music. And then when the band got back together, fortunately, I established myself and my business enough to continue touring and, get back into the band heavily, and still have a job, and still have a way to earn a living. So it's like I said earlier, it's it's allowed us to not have to take any shortcuts or compromise in any way, because it's not something that we, because let's put it this way, a lot of bands to sustain a certain level of popularity or record sales or money earning, you have to compromise sometimes and maybe change with the times, to stay at a certain level. And that's all good. That's all well and good. And there's nothing wrong with adapting your style or changing or, being like, what, we're going to try something this and trying new things and experimenting with different sounds and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But, there is a little footnote to that, because sometimes you have to change purposely just to stay with the times. And we've all seen it with a lot of bands that when they change, it's obvious and it's awkward, and they're only doing it as maybe a cash grab or just a way to stay relevant, and to stay at a certain level.
Yeah.
And we've never had to do that. Not that we're a mega band, we've just been able to continue doing making the music that we like to make. And we don't have to worry about like, oh geez, how many records are we going to sell? Or are we going to make X amount of money? And all that stuff's nice if you can get it.
Yeah.
We're not opposed to that, because money is pretty fucking cool. But we've never really felt any pressure to be like, well, we've got to make this next record a little more palatable, or maybe I shouldn't be so fucking mad on this next one, or maybe I should try to incorporate some clean vocals, or hey Matt, maybe get out of the fucking 80s and don't write, whatever, you know what I mean? But none of us have ever felt any pressure to do anything that we just didn't like to do, so and because of that, you say what you will, but I mean, we've always stuck to what we do the best. And over time, I think people appreciate that, because you kind of know what you're going to get. And that's, you get a good, we like to think that you get a kick-ass record every time. And it's kind of like, I've heard people say, well, you guys are kind of like a one-trick pony, you know? And I'm like, well, it's a pretty fucking good trick, you know?
Right.
So it's like, that's fine. I'll keep doing it. You know, it's like you wouldn't want to hear Motorhead change their sound. You wouldn't want to hear Bolt Thrower change their sound. You know, they
Right.
do what they do, and they do it really well. So why feel the need to change it, you know? So we kind of feel the same way, and because the band is not our living, we've never felt any pressure to change. How about that for an answer? That's pretty good.
Yes. With all these, you know, while establishing yourself as an artist and a tattoo artist outside of music, what did you learn in those avenues that sort of helped you in the music industry with the bands that you're a part of?
Well, one thing, I mean, being like when we first started, things weren't, I mean, the music business, and even in the short period of time, relatively, I mean, if you look at, you know, you say almost 30 years, and that is a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, it's still not that long, you know, but we've always been in control of our artwork and our merchandise and kind of the way we're portrayed aesthetically, you know.
Yeah.
We don't really let we never really let like a label be like, okay, we're going to brand you guys as this, or, you know, can you guys, you know, look a little prettier, you know what I mean? Like we've always had, and I'm a control freak as far as like aesthetics go and the artwork and how we're kind of represented artistically.
Yeah.
So, I guess what I've learned, I mean, I'll say this, and fortunately for us, because a lot of bands, great bands, don't really, they have a concept of what they want to do and how the type of band they are, and they know what they like, but there's no one inside the band that really, you know, they have to outsource for artwork or for aesthetics or anything like that, you know. Fortunately for us, because it is expensive to do that stuff, because I'm on the other side of that as well when bands come to me for artwork and stuff, and that stuff costs money. Whereas a band like us, I do all our stuff, and of course I do it for relatively nothing, you know, just for, you know, the love of doing it. So I kind of appreciate, you learn to appreciate, I guess, all the aesthetics and artwork that comes with the band in itself. You know what I mean? Your T-shirts, your album covers, your ads, pretty much everything. You know, like being on the other side of that, I could kind of, I don't know. We're fortunate that I could do a lot of that stuff for the band. You know, so that's one plus that being an artist kind of gives us in that respect, you know. Yeah, so I don't know. That's I kind of trailed off again, but
as a person like you, like yourself, that has all these different talents that can bring to the table, you know, for your bands and the bands that you work with, you know, what sort of advice would you give to, you know, anybody listening to this episode? You know, it doesn't matter what they do, what sort of avenue of artistry that they're in. What sort of nugget of knowledge from your life that could you, you know, give to someone that they could project to their own life?
Well, I mean, I think it all comes with one of the bases is you got to like what you're doing. I mean, I know plenty of artists that are exceptional artists. I mean, they're fantastic, and they're working in a field that's boring to them, or they're doing, you know, regular commercial work and stuff that pays the bills, which is fine because, I mean, you know, you want to be an ad person and stuff, but in real life that you're an exceptional artist. So, you know, it helps tremendously if you really love and you're passionate about the work that you're doing. I mean, it's hard to get passionate about, you know, if you're just working at an ad agency, making ads for, you know, or doing greeting cards or something like that. Whereas it pays the bills and that's fine, and you're in the art field, sometimes you're just genuinely not satisfied in life. So, I mean, I'd say mainly you need to love what you're doing. Two, I forgot what I was going to say too. It's pretty good. I forgot. Yeah, you need to love what you're doing, and you need to have a little balls sometimes and be willing to take chances as far as like, like I said, I have a couple personal friends that quit very stable, very good creative field jobs to go out and do and tackle, try to have a go with it at their passion, like whether it's fine art or they were sculptors or something, whatever it is, it takes a lot of balls to kind of, especially when you get older too, when things get, a little more serious, when you're not like, if you could do this when you're in your 20s and you've got a little more, fuck the world type, attitude, you know what I mean? Which you usually do when you're younger, because things don't seem as permanent or as serious when you're younger. But, I know a lot of people that have quit very, very good jobs to make peanuts and go back to eating bologna sandwiches every day because, they were just so unsatisfied. And, they may be making 1/3 the money, but they're way happier. So you got to love what you do. You got to have a little balls to kind of go after what you want. And this is all in general talk too, so whether it's musically or artistically, those are two important things you got to do. And outside of that, I mean, it's a crap game. It's a gamble with everything you do. You just got to be tough and stick it out. And obviously you've got to work your ass off, I mean, in this day and age with the way social media is and marketing yourself and all that stuff, it's a tremendous, and because the market is so open and everyone has a forum to display what they're doing, whether it's musically or artistically, it's a huge, it's a lot bigger. The world's a lot bigger than it used to be, especially with social media,
Right.
So, I mean, and I'm from an older generation where I didn't have to do any of that. It was all kind of old school, work ethic and stuff like that, which I still have because, you look right now and a lot of artists spend probably 70 to 75% of their time promoting themselves, whether it be through Twitter or through Instagram or through this and that. So they spend 75% of their time on that as opposed to actually doing work,
Right.
making a product. They're more concerned with selling themselves than doing the work, and that, unfortunately, that's a bad part of social media, because you look at it and like, wow, I've got 200,000 followers, but you spend all your time doing that instead of just, rolling up your sleeves and doing work. You know what I mean? So it's a weird scene out there. Sometimes I don't get it, or even if I do get it, I don't even care, 'cause I'm kind of stuck in my ways,
Right.
But it's a weird field. Art's a weird field, but you got to trust your talent, have a little guts, and be willing to work your fucking ass off, do what you need to do.
Yeah, coming up, you guys got a few record release shows for Death Becomes My Voice. Talk about those.
Yes. Well, let's see. The day the record comes out, we're going to be playing a place called Belcher's Rock House. That's in Mansfield, Ohio. Not that far away from Cleveland, but it's a town that I don't think we've ever played before. They've been trying to get us there for a long time, and I think our guitar player says we have played there, but I don't believe him. I don't remember. I mean, but I don't think we've ever played that city before. So it's a pretty small club, but it's more like a real intimate thing. So that's the day it comes out. And who are we playing with on that? I think Empire Rats and a band called Postal. More of like a kind of crossover-y hardcore bill on that one. So that's looking to be pretty fun. I'm pretty excited about that. And that's on May 3rd, the day the record comes out. And then the following day, we are at Sanctuary in Detroit.
Right.
That should be pretty fun. Detroit is always a good time. We've got a lot of friends in Detroit. And
I'll be at that show.
What's that?
I'll be at that show.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah, because I'm here in
That should
Detroit.
be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, are you from Detroit? Are you calling from Detroit right now?
Yes.
Oh, no shit. Okay. Well, yeah, didn't this club used to be Paychecks?
I believe so. I haven't been to Sanctuary since it's been the Sanctuary, but I believe so.
Yeah, we played. I believe I was told we played this. We played this club before, but it was under a different name. So yeah, that should be pretty rowdy as well. At Detroit, we haven't hit Detroit in a while, and when we do, it could get pretty hairy, as most Detroit shows can. So we're looking forward to that. And then on the Sunday, which is Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, we're going to be playing here in Cleveland with Noisem from Baltimore.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they're younger band, young kids. They're a full-blown thrash metal, fucking raging thrash metal band. They're excellent band. So we got them coming up from Baltimore. We're going to do, and since it's a Sunday, we're going to do a matinee show, which is something we've experimented with before. I mean, of course, back in the day, matinees were a lot more prevalent than they are these days, but they're pretty awesome. So we're kind of stoked. It's a Sunday. We're like, fuck it. Why do a late show on a Sunday?
Right.
We'll do a matinee. Yeah, and matinees, like, usually at people that, like, a lot of the younger kids, matinees don't happen a lot,
Yeah.
So usually after the show, everyone's like, dude, that was awesome. Like, it's like 6 o'clock. I'm already at home. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
It's great
That sounds
for
good.
and it's awesome for like old timers that like, have to worry about like, getting to work the next day or finding babysitters and shit like that.
Right.
They're like, fuck yeah, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? So we're pretty stoked on that. And we're playing at a club here in Cleveland called the Phantasy Nightclub. And it's a pretty historical venue. It's been closed for many years now. And a local girl here, Lisa, who owns a club across the street from it called the Foundry, which does really well. She invested and bought into the whole fantasy complex, which includes the Fantasy Nightclub, and there's also the Fantasy Theater there, which has been closed for many years. But growing up, I've seen so many shows there, Motorhead and Danzig and Voivod, and like in the 80s, it was the place to go. It was a huge venue, and it went out of business, or they just quit doing shows there, and it kind of the whole building kind of ran itself down. And she bought into the place, and they just had an integrity show there a few days ago, last week I believe, and as a reopening party. And I haven't been there since they've got it totally done, but it looks excellent. It sounds excellent. So a lot of people in town are excited to get back to that venue. Because Cleveland, oddly enough, well, not oddly enough, but over the years has never been short of venues. There's always, when you travel around to other cities, you kind of see that some cities are, they're struggling with their scene,
Yeah.
Their metal, their hardcore scene, because there's a lack of venues. They'll open one up, it'll be open for 2 months, and then it closes. Or then they have to go to like, YMCAs and just kind of like, or house parties, and that really hurts the scene when you just simply don't have places you could play without, cops showing up or
Yep.
all the other problems, or, all the state, So Cleveland's always been fortunate. We've always had a staple of like a lot of places. At any given time, there's 5 or 6 places you could do a show in town. And with the reopening of this place, it just really cements it as far as like trying to give bands a good place to play locally and bands coming in from out of town. So, plus the theater too is where we shot our last video for Acquiesce off the last record. So that was pretty cool, being in the theater for the first time in like 15, 16 years for me. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting. So we're pretty stoked on the Cleveland show.
Awesome. Why, after all these years, why does a type of music like hardcore and anything sort of street adjacent to that still have such a good, like, underground following?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'll say that just because, like, I guess as far as like, quote unquote hardcore, I've never considered Ringworm a hardcore band. I mean, as strange as that sounds, we've always been branded as that, is because we've maybe always straddled stereotypes, and growing up in Cleveland and kind of coming up in the hardcore scene as we did the first decade of our career, you kind of get branded into that mold. Whereas I always thought we were a hell of a lot different than bands like Madball or any Judge, all those bands. Like, to me that was kind of hardcore. We've always had different aesthetics and a way more abrasive sound that was different than your average hardcore band. So, but as far as the so me commenting on the longevity of it, is kind of skewed. But I mean, the hardcore, to me, like the hardcore scene, I guess is a youth scene. You know what I mean? That's why it's always changing. If you go to a metal show, metal is usually always metal. You see, it doesn't seem weird when you go to a metal show and you see a 65-year-old guy there,
right,
enjoying the band. Everyone's like, oh, that's cool. Look at that old dude fucking banging his head, raging. That's great. Now, if you go to a hardcore show and you see a 65-year-old guy there, people are gonna be like, look at that creep. Like, look at this fucking weirdo. Look at this creep, old man. You know what I mean? And it's true. You've seen it. If you feel like you're the old guy at a show when you go to a hardcore show, that's because hardcore is more or less it's a youth movement. Hardcore is, that's why it's always changing. Hardcore 15 years ago, it doesn't sound like hardcore now. You know what I mean? It's an ever changing kind of entity, but it's always based in the youth of the audience. So I think that's why it's been able to stay, far, and it's not so underground anymore because a lot of hardcore bands have broken out to become very popular and very successful. So, but I don't think that's ever really going to go away because it's a blend of all types of music, hardcore. So, and it's ever changing, I guess, definition is what's going to keep it going strong. Because I mean, if bands never really changed and say bands still hardcore, you sound like you said today, and that's it. That's hardcore. I think that hardcore would be a footnote if it never changed. So the fact that it's able to change through different I guess, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it'll that's why it's able to stay the way it has and continue to grow. So that's my take on it. But whereas metal is metal. It'll always be there for you, and that usually the restrictions on what that is, that's also loose fitting too. It's a changing definition, but metal seems to have a more firmer grasp on what it should, quote unquote, should sound like, But that's why, also that's why it's like you have the expression hardcore kid. You rarely hear like metal kid. You know what I mean? It's metalheads or whatever, but hardcore kid is kind of says a lot in words because it is a youth-oriented genre.
Right. I always like to end my interviews from a podcast, same question. And that question is, who is somebody that's been a part of your life or career that I could realistically interview for this podcast that would have some good stories to talk about?
Oh, well, shit. I mean, obviously if you could track him down, I would say Frank Novinek, one of my best friends and our original guitar player. He plays in Hatebreed now.
Yes.
But he's one of the best guys I've ever met. He's fucking hysterical, and he's got a really good take and an intelligent opinion about, because what he's been through and the way he's come up and the success that he's been able to achieve musically, he has a great perspective on just about everything because he's been at lower points. Obviously, when we first started Ringworm, his track record, his pedigree is untouchable as far as, I guess, the hardcore / metal scene is considered. He's been in everything,
Yeah.
Terror and Hatebreed and Integrity and Ringworm. He's been there, done that. So his take on stuff is priceless,
Yeah, I actually
So
got
if
to.
if you can get an interview with him, you would be very happy because he's an encyclopedia of knowledge, and he's really intelligent and funny as fuck too.
Oh yeah,
so it'd be a good one.
I actually did interview him once at the Warp Tour, but it was a short interview. I would love to get him for an extended period of time.
Well, they're out on tour right now, so I don't know if that makes it easier or not. They may be coming through Detroit, so
they were just
really
in
sure.
Detroit last week. I went to the show. It was awesome.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I know I just read that they're going back out again with who are they going out with? Dropkick Murphys and Clutch.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's going through your neck of the woods. I know it's not coming through Cleveland. They're going to be here in Cleveland. May 8th, I believe, on the second half of their 25th anniversary tour. So
right.
Yeah, maybe you could track him down and get a good hour out of him, and make sure you get some good questions loaded up because he'll give you good answers. He would be my first choice. You know what I mean? He's like I said, exceptional knowledge about stuff. And he's been there and done that.
Yeah, in the short time I got to interview him, he said a lot. So yeah, that's definitely a good person. All right.
I bet he did.
All right, it's been good talking with you. Loved everything you talked about. Where can people go online to get more information about Ringworm, the Death Becomes My Voice album, and any shows that you got coming up?
Yeah, you could. I mean, obviously, you could go to our Facebook page. Like everyone's got one of those in the whole world. So you go to the Ringworm Facebook page. We keep that updated with all the shows and where they're going to be and what we're doing when we're doing them. So that's pretty. Or you could check Relapse for any release dates or anything crazy we might be doing. Or usually my own personal Facebook, James Bullock. I try to keep that semi refreshed with Ringworm information and news on my page as well. So yeah. Bottom line is if you want to see us play, just search us on the internet and you can find it.
Cool.
You can find what we're up to. But we put it out there, so it's there for you to find. It's there.
Awesome. It's been great talking with you, and I'll definitely see you at the Detroit show.
Cool. Sounds good, man. I appreciate the interview.
So that was my interview with the Human Furnace, vocalist of the Cleveland-based metal hardcore band Ringworm. Information about their new album, Death Becomes My Voice, along with the full stream of the album, along with links to Ringworm's social media, are all in the show notes for this episode at freshasthepodcast.com. All right, that's another great episode in the books. Thanks for listening, goodbye, and good night.
Fresh is the word.